king identifies himself with Maat. I hope you got that. Spell 634 reads, NN is declared that he is Maat. Now, NN is the normal person. It's not the king. They just call them NN because through the mystery drama, several people participate in this ritual. So they're just identified generically as NN. But NN is also declared to have become Maat. This is precisely what Joseph Smith indicated in facsimile 3, isn't it? So is this a contradiction? Or is this an understanding of the proper Egyptian religion? Something to keep in mind, isn't it? When we go to the Egyptian literatures, when we try to understand the Egyptian drama and mystery plays, we find things are very powerfully depicted by Joseph Smith. He is indicating to us that the 3 facsimiles are part of the Egyptian mystery plays, which they are. Facsimile number 1, the sacrifice scene. Facsimile number 2, the hypocephalus, the cosmological map, the instructions. And facsimile number 3 is the judgment, the deification scene, where the fusion takes place. Abraham is said to be on Pharaoh's throne. Do you know who that throne is? That throne is nothing other than the mother goddess Isis. Joseph Smith identified Abraham, the Pharaoh, with Isis. This is a complete fusion going on in facsimile number 3. That is what I would propose is happening. Very Egyptian touch, to be sure. So, where was I? Oh, this is good too. In spell 649, in the coffin texts, the candidate is not only Thoth, but he is also called Seth. He is also identified with Maat, Horus, Geb, Min, Anti, and Khons, the moon god. The mortal is identified with, is fused with all of these deities. And you notice the deities are male and female. Identity and fusion with all of the gods. Male and female is indicated in spell 957, the coffin text. We read, I will not perish, die, come to nothing, or be destroyed, because I am Maat, who is in the midst of Nekbet. The fusion of the gods with the mortals gives them eternal life. In spell 1142, it simply declares, I am Maat. Identity is the theme. Now, Barta also elaborates on yet another form of identity of the gods and the goddesses. That is, through their functions. Not just their names, but their functions. England further underscores that the attributes of the gods and the goddesses are automatically connected with the king as he unites with them. Did you get that? Pharaoh is identified with Isis in the hieroglyph, and the Prince of Pharaoh is identified with Maat in the hieroglyph. Because the entire point of the king uniting with the various gods and goddesses is to acquire their powers and attributes for the righteous rule over the people. This is the main key to understanding Joseph Smith's interpretations of the hieroglyphs in facsimile number 3. See, on the surface, what we have here is something that appears contradictory, but it's not. Not when we understand the ancient Egyptian religious system. This isn't what Joseph Smith elaborated on. Unfortunately, I wish he would have, but he didn't. So we're just stuck with his summary statements in the facsimiles. The Egyptian gods and goddesses, they are symbolic of cosmological and legal moral precepts and ideals which humans strive to possess. Humans gain these qualities of the deities by becoming the deities, inheriting their offices, their duties, their powers, and their properties, by spiritually acquiring the properties of the gods and the goddesses, and even by becoming the gods and the goddesses, humans can physically live the good and righteous life. Exactly what Abraham and Pharaoh emulated in the book of Abraham, chapter 1, verses 2 and verse 26. Pharaoh was a righteous man. He was trying to imitate that order of the priesthood that was had from the beginning. Abraham recognized that, but he didn't have the true priesthood. That was in Abraham's possession, but Pharaoh had the kingship. So this is fascinating how they do this. And Barta shows this that through the coffin text and the pyramid texts. The pyramid texts are the oldest Egyptian materials. They were the inscriptions that were written actually on the inside of the pyramids, so that when the king was buried in them, he had all of his instructions. See, we die as to our mortal body. Everybody knows that. But the Egyptians believed that they went right on living, that they could still function, and so they wrote all their instructions in the pyramid so that they could read the instructions and then do what it said. That's what the pyramid texts. Later on, the coffin texts were the writings written on the inside of the coffins themselves, and then that later became the Book of the Dead, and the Book of Breathings, and the Book of Wandering Through Eternities, and the Book of Gates, and they have a vast corpus of literature, these ancient Egyptians do. What they did, Barta shows that through these coffin texts and the pyramid texts, what they're teaching is that the fusion of the Ba, of the god and the mortal, occurred. Now the Ba is the double. It's the spiritual aspect of the person. It's the spirit person. The Egyptian teaching was that if my Ba was to step outside of my body, it would be just like me, except it's a spirit instead of a body. These Bas, see, we're talking about a spiritual fusion and a physical fusion and identification, according to the ancient Egyptians here. This is fascinating. The way Barta describes this, according to the Egyptian literature, is this fusion of the Bas, of the mortal and the immortal, is defined in graphic sexual terms. And it is. This is the only way to try to fathom the intensity of the spiritual union of the mortal with the divine, from a mortal viewpoint, of course. The Ba is the life force, the spirit of the person. It's doppelganger, according to Bonnet, the double. The Ba is a crucially important concept of the ancient Egyptians in order to understand Joseph Smith's facsimile number 3 explanations.